All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown in beautiful, sunny, hotter and hotter Shenzhen, China, just south of the Tropic of Cancer. And I have on the line the eminently knowledgeable, the profoundly informed Godfree Roberts in Chiang Mai, Thailand. How are you doing, Godfree?
I'm very well, thank you, Jeff.
I'd like to let everybody know out there, the fans in China Rising Radio Sinoland, that Godfree has already written several books, reference books about Thailand and some other things, but he is writing his first China book, China-specific book, that's going to come out later this year called China 2020, and that's not China going to get an eye test. That is an eye examination. That is China in the year 2020. And how's it coming along, Godfree, and when do you think you'll have it published?
Well, I had set myself a deadline for last December, and I've got chapter 1, to a reasonably good shape this week. So I have all the content, but it's really just framing it because people's frame of reference is so strange.
Yeah. Well, if you get it finished by this December, hats off to you, because I've written three China books already, and it takes for that last 10% is what just eats you alive. So. Hey, well, listen, the reason you and I decided to have this interview, and then we almost decided not to have it because the president of China, Xi Jinping, and the president of the United States, Donald Trump, in Mar-A-Lago in Florida earlier this week, their summit was really built up early on, and then it just seemed to kind of fizzle. And it seemed almost like a non-event, but then you and I communicated, and we thought, well, you know what? Maybe there's a lot more here. If we read the tea leaves, and we cannot ignore the fact that anything that the United States and China do together or against each other can have profound implications on the world's economy, the world's safety, and the world's progress, etc. So. Why do you think it was really built up at the end, and then it just kind of seemed to become a non-event? Why do you think that happened? At least within the framework of the mainstream media. Why do you think they soft shoot it and downplayed it so much after it started and after it ended?
Well, I'd like to ask your readers if they can answer a series of questions.
Okay.
We know, first of all, that of all of the three major world leaders, President Trump, President Putin, and President Xi, that President Trump has the least freedom of movement and speech. He is highly constrained, very narrowly constrained in what he can say. He can't criticize Israel, for example.
Yeah.
He can't declare peace, or he risks being assassinated.
Like Kennedy.
Yeah. It's, in other words, he's very constrained. Putin has a much stronger position. He has far less constraints, so he often speaks very frankly, and people are shocked. But he's free to do so because of the Russian system. President Xi is completely free. He's been basically set free most recently when he was named a core leader. That was giving him extra freedom.
Yeah,
hey, we trust you a lot. After 5 years, we really, baby, you do what you like. You're doing good. So they gave him more freedom. So then this is what happened. He flew across. He's a very busy guy. He's got a busy program to get finished by 2020. But he flew across the world for 1 day to visit a guy at his private home. And make no announcement, nothing official. He just flew in, spent a few hours together, and flew out. If he'd wanted to make it a state affair, you know, a significant state visit and friendship, blah, 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 he would have gone to the White House. He would have
Yeah.
got tremendous coverage at the White House. He got none because he went to the president's private home, where, by the way, the president is safe because he is guarded by his private staff.
security service.
Yes.
He doesn't trust the Secret Service, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
they were involved in RFK's and JFK's assassinations.
Yeah. So let's assume that it was exactly what it looked like, a personal visit.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good perspective. I like that.
Yeah, because it was, you know, it was private, so it was therefore personal. So Xi had made the gesture of being the first to visit, rather than demanding that Trump come and see him. And he went, I believe, to tell President Trump one thing, you know, a very simple message. Now, I leave it to your readers to fill in what they think it would be, but my guess is he went to say, look, we see the position you're in, I see the position you're in. Your readers, your listeners may not know Xi's experience with prisons and politics, but he had terrible experience. And as a matter of fact, I think he said, not long ago, he said, people who've had little experience with power, those who are far from it, tend to regard politics as mysterious and exciting. But I look past the superficialities, the power, the flowers, the glory, the applause. I see the detention houses, the fickleness of human relationships.
Yeah.
I understand politics at a deeper level. So that's the guy who was visiting President Trump, and I think he went with a deeper message. Something like, we're here to help. You know, send us your shopping list, and anything we can do to help you, we'll do. Don't worry about us losing face or you know, winning out. We don't care about that stuff. We don't have to. We're free not to. So that's my guess. You know, my fill in the blank is that he just popped in, met privately, and said, we're here to help.
Well, that actually makes a lot of sense, Godfrey, because, I mean, the whole thing was, I mean, if you just look at the photographs and the videos and, you know, I mean, Trump never smiled. She almost like never stopped smiling.
Yep.
And he had this silly sort of Cheshire cat grin on his. He looked like an overweight Robert De Niro, you know, doing a Hollywood, you know, sort of, you know, Cheshire cat smile. That the handshakes went well, and I love the fact that before the dinner, that first night. Which, as you say, and I actually hadn't thought about that, but it was not a state dinner because it was not at the White House. You know, he said, I have gotten absolutely nothing but see that we are going to be good friends, that we're going to have a great relationship together. And she just sat there stiffly just smiling. I'm sure that was, he probably had an earbud in his ear to hear all that. And he did, you know, she did look a little bit uncomfortable in a couple of the pictures, and I don't know, you know, that's uncharacteristic of him. I mean, he's not a super charismatic guy. I mean, he's not a, you know, he's not a Mao Zedong. I mean, you know, he's not a, you know, he's not a Deng Xiaoping, but he did seem a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, what you're saying makes sense, you know. What Trump, you know, said and how he responded makes a lot of sense. How do you feel? Why do you think she looked a little bit uncomfortable at times?
Oh, you know, he's not a naturally backslapping type of guy. He's a very, very private and with a reputation for being actually very boring and stiff in private.
Yeah.
But, you know, the reason I think he also wanted to help Trump. And there's a reason for that. if you remember back to the election campaign, I voted for Trump, by the way, not because I admired him, but because I felt that he was probably going to try to avoid thermonuclear war, whereas Hillary wasn't. She was full sail, full set, on war with everybody.
With everybody, especially Russia and China.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all we need.
Yeah, exactly. And but Trump would like to not do that. He would like to have good relationships with Russia and China. His business background alone suggests that. And I think Tillerson is the same way. But as I said, they don't have much room to move. They have to say certain things, and they're very, very tightly constrained.
Well, that brings up a good point. There was some speculation that, and again, that right before the dinner on the 6th, the day that she arrived, Trump informed Xi that the United States was going to, bomb Syria, and there were some Machiavellian comments in some press here in the region that this was a signal to China that they better do something about North Korea or else, and that North Korea is next. Do you think that has any merit?
Well, it's hard to tell. I mean, these people are crazy as cut snakes. You never know what they're really going to do. But I thought the missile attack on Syria was fascinating. It was purely symbolic.
Yeah. Nothing was damaged. Really, nothing.
No.
It was all for show.
Yeah. So there's a lot of shadow boxing going on. And I think it is very much in Xi's interest to give up quite a lot to help Trump. There's a great deal to be gained.
Yeah. Well, and China can afford it. I mean, they hold all the cards. I mean, they hold the whole deck. I mean, basically, other than America's military, they hold the whole deck.
Yes, and particularly now with his strengthened position, with literally one conference call, Xi could have 50 of the world's largest corporations invest tomorrow in America.
Yeah. Well, Jack Ma of Alibaba, Taobao, he more or less suggested that when he went to the United States after Trump was elected, and suggested that so that he could that China would like to help America, create 1 million jobs.
Yeah, and they can do that. They're very good at creating jobs. That's actually one of their strengths.
Yeah.
They create 10 million a year in China.
Yeah.
They're trying to create 80,000 a year in Ethiopia, but they could also create 1 million a year in the United States.
So that would explain what, because for our listeners out there, typically when Xi Jinping or Li Keqiang, the premier, the number 2 guy in China, who is more of a smiling, backslapping, chummy, fluent in English, kind of a guy, a real good salesman for China. But there were no deals, there were no bilateral commercial, cultural, educational, military, and scientific agreements. I mean, typically when Xi and Li, go to a country and leave, they come back with a suitcase full of, bilateral cooperation, dossiers. And so what you're saying actually makes a lot of sense, that that it was done at Mar-A-Lago, that it was basically a tete-a-tete, personal visit. And what you're saying also makes sense because the day after, and it almost went unmentioned, but Tillerson, the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, said the day after that she left that China and the United States had made huge progress with North Korea, and that Tillerson was confident that the situation on the Korean Peninsula was going to improve. What do you make of that, and what might that entail?
Well, if we look at it, I think, I hope that Trump does not want war. If we take that as a fundamental part of his platform, it was one of his promises to his base.
Yeah. Almost a retrenchment, almost an isolationist.
Yes.
Cut back on military bases around the world, cut back on military adventures, imperial adventures, across the planet. Yeah, go ahead.
And if you look at American history from 1911 forward, particularly through the presidency of Woodrow Wilson, from then on, if you opposed war, your life was in danger. Either you would be assassinated or imprisoned.
Yeah.
And that's been the rule in the USA for 160 years. And Trump, was unenthusiastic about war. And that put him on the danger list immediately.
Yeah. Which is why he has his private security detail.
Yes, exactly. So it is, if that's true, and he said it, and he's tried to act on it, if that's true, then it is greatly in Xi's interest to help him in any way at almost any cost.
Yeah.
$1 trillion, that's cheap.
Yeah.
That's really bargain basement.
Yeah.
Particularly since you can get the money back in 20 years, and at decent interest, just by helping,
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I think that's what was part of the offer. Then, a public offer to help with North Korea, and then maybe some gestures that, quieten down the war party there. Or something that, he wants to team up with Putin so that Putin is free to make peaceful noises. And, in other words, support Trump in every way possible, because it's the cheapest deal you're ever going to get.
Yeah. Something to point out to our fans out there, that in any political system, whether it's North Korea or China or the United States or Europe, you typically have, your hawks and your doves. I mean, I'm sure I know there are generals right now in China who would like to go to war with the United States to show off their gear, and then there's the doves, and you have this in the United States too. The Department of Defense is not monolithic, and nor is the Department of State. And North Korea certainly, has its hawks and its doves. So right now, it would appear that in China the doves are ascendant, and the doves are ascendant in at least in North Korea right now too, because he could easily bomb South Korea if he wanted to. Mm-hmm. And so the big question is, as you say, at least since Truman, and probably if you read the diaries of Roosevelt and Wilson and other presidents, maybe even before then, they don't have a lot of room to really do what they want to do. And as we both said, the last one that tried got murdered by his own government, John F. Kennedy. And so the whole question, I guess it boils down to, is that can Trump hold off the war party? I mean, because Hillary is the titular head of the war party. The Bushes and the Clintons are the war party leaders, and so I guess it's just can Trump and Tillerson pull this off and keep the United States from going to war? How do you feel about that?
Well, it's a huge task, but it's possible that the administration can regain control of the military. They did it in Turkey, so it can be done.
Yeah, but Erdogan fired about 20,000 officers too to do it, and I don't know if Trump would have the guts to do that or have the ability to do that. I don't know if he could pull that off.
Yeah, I don't know if he has the popular support. But just incidentally, how dangerous it is. Nixon's problem, the Watergate break-in, was a frame. He was framed.
Oh, of course he was framed, yeah.
And he was framed because he was making peace.
Yeah, trying to get out of Vietnam.
Yeah, and trying to be friends with China.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, it is very fraught. And the longer China can keep America from bombing it and bombing Russia, the longer they have to build their own strength, to the point my Chinese friend at breakfast this morning said that they will stop when their economy is twice the size of the United States and they're 1-to-1 in defense. He said, because you can't stop any sooner than that. It's just too dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If the American dollar doesn't collapse before then, but that takes a lot longer along the historical timeline than most of us would like to admit. But it takes decades and centuries for a currency to finally collapse.
Yes.
But well, this has been interesting. I'm reassured by what you told me. I hadn't thought about the fact. Yeah, Mar-A-Lago. That's not the White House, so it really wasn't a state visit. And it will be really interesting. And you know what, Godfrey, this actually really plays well. Trump's tweets to his base, aside, because he has to keep those people satisfied. But his tweets aside, and his his jocular joking. I've gotten absolutely nothing out of President Xi so far, but the fact that it was a private visit, that's exactly the way the Chinese like to do diplomacy. They don't want it public. They don't want it out in the open. They want it to be, behind closed doors, where they can talk frankly and openly and honestly, and not be constrained by the mainstream media. So what you're saying actually makes a lot of sense.
Well, let's hope so. That would be very cool. If you see, I think they've already got Putin on board. Putin has known Rex Tillerson for 20 years, and they seem to get on very well.
And he's actually going to Moscow the 11th and the 12th.
Yep.
Although I think part of this thing where they're trying to suck Russia into being an accomplice with the false flag gas attack in Syria, saying, "Oh, we're going to see if Russia was involved." I think I'm so I've done so much research that gas attack may not even have happened. The whole thing could have been staged. I mean, the whole thing could have just been a fictitious false flag.
Yeah.
And there could have been not one child died. I mean, the whole thing could just be a mirage. But it's to destroy, it's to give the United States an opportunity to, show its imperial muscle, and to demonize, Russia and Iran. And but then there were talks because of Tillerson needs to cancel his visit to Moscow. It's just, but that may have been one of the reasons they did this. Was also to try to bully Tillerson into canceling his visit to Moscow. I mean, look, they bullied Trump into dismissing the was the guy that was on his cabinet?
The Irish guy with
Steve, whatever his name was.
Bannon.
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah, getting rid of these guys. Well, the other guy, the first guy, I can't remember. That now the FBI is going to try to prosecute him and all this other stuff. But now let's just hope that Tillerson has the good graces and the courage to keep going to Moscow this week, because otherwise if they allow him to if he lets them bully him into not going to Moscow, that would be a tragedy.
Yeah, it would be game over.
Yeah. So well, listen, this has been really good. I think what that we can take away from this is that the mass media in the West, tried to blow it up into a big summit détente. It was never intended to be that, but the fact that Mar-a-Lago, President Trump's home in Florida, was chosen over the White House, so it was not a state visit; it was a personal visit. It was not really 2 days; it was a little over 1 day, and they had two or three lunches and many hours of conversation. The one thing I do want to point out is that before we hang up, we both caught. Both Xi and Trump both said in their statements that we have been in contact with each other for a long time, and I thought that was really key. That as soon as Trump was elected, his team and China have been in contact probably since November 8th. And as she said it, we have had many contacts, So apparently there is a China team in Trump's administration, and there is an American team in Xi's administration. And these working teams or these working committees are in, probably, energy, infrastructure, military, on and on and on. They probably have, desks for each of these topics, but it's obvious from what they both said that China and the United States are in constant contact with each other, and probably, although Trump doesn't want to admit it, but I'm sure it's probably also happening with Russia. So, as we said in the United States, sometimes you have to do stuff, behind the scenes, because otherwise you just get, completely overwhelmed by the the CIA manipulated press. So that was very key, that they're obviously in constant contact with each other. Did you feel that too with what they said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Trump is no fool. He survived a lot of New York mobsters and.
Oh,
people.
absolutely, absolutely.
So,
well, listen, my friend, good to talk to you. I hope the weather is as beautiful in Chiang Mai, Thailand, as it is here in Shenzhen. And let's stay in touch. And I can't wait to see your book, China 2020 by Godfree Roberts. My book, China Rising, just came out in print about 2 weeks ago. It's available on Amazon. And Barak Mira is going to publish my upcoming book, China is Communist, Damn It, Dawn of the Red Dynasty. I'm supposed to be receiving proof copies in the next couple of weeks, and it will hopefully be out by this summer. So Godfrey and I will continue to offer a fresh and informative perspective on China. And thanks, everybody, for listening. And Godfrey, thank you for being on.
Thanks, Jeff. Look forward to talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.